What George Soros learned from Adolph Hitler. Evil comes full circle.
Georgy Schwartz was born on a Tuesday, August 12, 1930. When he was 14 years old, he was adopted by a minister for agriculture in the Nazi Party.
I was adopted by an official of the Ministry of Agriculture, whose job was to take over Jewish properties, so I actually went with him, and we took possession of these large estates. That was my identity.
His Nazi history is far worse than just that. One thing the newly minted George Soros was, more than anything else, was intelligent. He missed very little. He learned from what he witnessed. On October 10, 2008 he was interviewed by Bill Moyers.
That's my ideology. As a child, I experienced fascism, the Nazi occupation and then communism, two false ideologies. And I learned that both of those ideologies are false. And now I was shocked when I found that even in a democracy people can be misled to the extent that we've been misled in the last few years.
He learned how to mislead a populace. So when he planned his one world government, Hitler's quest just not by the Germans, he needed a common enemy. His common enemy was already under siege across the globe. White people. All he had to do was emulate Adolf Hitler and turn the blacks and other minorities against the white majority. Demonize them. Attack them. Make them weak and defenseless. On September 12, 2003 Soros was interviewed by David Brancaccio on PBS. Brancaccio.
Do you see a thread that links your childhood experience with your career as a financier, with your philanthropy, and now political activist?
Soros.
Oh, it's a very strong thread that leads right through. You know, I learned at a very early age that what kind of social system or political system prevails is very important. Not just for your well-being, but for your very survival. Because you know, I could have been killed by the Nazis. I could have wasted my life under the communists. So that's what led me to this idea of an open society. And that is the idea that is motivating me.
Are there more similarities to Germany in the 1930s where he learned how to take over the world? This new strategy for achieving power was referred to as a legal revolution by Hitler. During the mid-1920s through to the early 1930s, the NSDAP, National Socialists or Nazis, concentrated upon creating a mass party that appealed to a broad cross-section of Germans. Propaganda became a tool for recruitment of supporters. With the support of powerful financial figures and in a coalition with other parties, the NSDAP gained a respectability by 1928 that lent them credibility in the eyes of many Germans. But despite this, by 1928, it appeared that the NSDAP was perhaps a spent force in politics.
After the onset of the worldwide economic collapse known as the Great Depression in 1929, unemployment skyrocketed in Germany. The National Socialist Workers' Party could now appeal to Germans in the midst of a new and terrible crisis.
In 2020, it happened with a virus, but unlike 1929, the American economy was too strong to collapse. China had aided Soros, while Iran was backing him, and some EU nations were turning a blind eye while Rome was attending.
Fascism, which is what Soros admitted was my identity, has been captured by the current crop of Nazis, and discovered by nearly all online dictionaries as a right-wing system of government. National Socialists were never right-wing, and it isn't right-wing today, any more than it was then. In the United States, the Ku Klux Klan, a white supremacist organization founded at the end of the Civil War and revived in 1915, displayed some fascist characteristics. One of its offshoots, the Black Legion, had some 60,000 members in the early 1930s and committed numerous acts of arson and bombing. In 1930, Catholic priest Charles E. Colin began national radio broadcasts of sermons on political and economic subjects. His talks became increasingly anti-democratic and anti-Semitic, as did the journal he founded, Social Justice. After running unsuccessfully for the U.S. presidency in 1936, Colin became an apologist for Hitler, Mussolini, and Franco. In 1942, Social Justice was banned from the U.S. mails for violating the Espionage Act, and in the same year the American Catholic Church ordered Colin to stop his broadcasts. The pro-Nazi German American Bund, founded in 1933, staged military drills and mass rallies until it disintegrated with the U.S. entry into the war in 1941.
Did you ever wonder where the hot phrase, social justice, came from? Pure socialist fascist hate-filled evil.
Black Lives Matter, and Antifa, are simply a clone of Hitler's essay, the Sturmabteilung. Replacing Jews with white, and Germans with blacks. It is evil at its core.
The Sturmabteilung, SA, literally storm detachment, was the Nazi Party's original paramilitary wing. It played a significant role in Adolf Hitler's rise to power in the 1920s and 1930s. Its primary purposes were providing protection for Nazi rallies and assemblies, disrupting the meetings of opposing parties, fighting against the paramilitary units of the opposing parties, especially the Red Front Fighters League, Rotfrontkampfverbund, of the Communist Party of Germany, KPD, and intimidating Romani, trade unionists, and, especially, Jews, for instance, during the 1933 Nazi boycott of Jewish businesses. The SA were colloquially called brown shirts, brown Hemden, from the color of their uniform shirts, similar to Benito Mussolini's black shirts. Brown-colored shirts were chosen as the SA uniform because a large number of them were cheaply available after World War I, having originally been ordered during the war for colonial troops posted to Germany's former African colonies. 1. The SA developed pseudo-military titles for its members, with ranks that were later adopted by several other Nazi party groups, chief amongst them the Schutzstaffel, SS. The SS originated as a branch of the SA before being separated. After Adolf Hitler ordered the Blood Purge of 1934, he withdrew support from the SA. This event became known as the Night of the Long Knives, Die Nacht der Langen Messer. The SA continued to exist, but was effectively superseded by the SS, although the paramilitary forces were not formally dissolved until after Nazi Germany's final capitulation to the Allies in 1945. Democrats already had the Ku Klux Klan, now they have their own storm detachment.
George Schwartz watched, took part, and learned how to enslave a species by turning it on itself.
It is 2020, but the same thing happened in 1933. The Nazis began to put into practice their racial ideology. The Nazis believed that the Germans were racially superior and that there was a struggle for survival between them and inferior races. They saw Jews, Gypsies, the handicapped and the old, as a serious biological threat to the purity of the German Aryan race, what they called the master race. Reworded only. In 2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa began to put into practice their racial ideology. BLM believed that the blacks were racially superior and that there was a struggle for survival between them and inferior races. They saw whites, Jews, Roma, Gypsies, and the handicapped and old as a serious biological threat to the purity of the African race. If this country does not forcibly put an end to all affiliates of Soros and George Soros, confiscate every penny he has and incarcerate him until he turns into worm dust, the inevitable will just be delayed. blacks will eventually realize they are being led by a white Jew who hates his heritage and they are nothing more than slaves again, by the same political party who enslaved them before.
There's nothing evil can do. Evil will pay for its own demise. In fact, technically, it already has.